This episode was sponsored by Property, the leading real estate agent for all real estate transactions with a comprehensive ecosystem. They combine highly trained experts with the latest technologies on an intelligent platform to provide clients, brokers, and service partners with risk-free, flexible, and simplified services. Learn more at property.com. That's property with an I.com.
When you come to a security director and he reads the news about you trying to bring smart tennis courts 6 months before, he's like, okay, and now you tell me you are in the security market.
Do I trust you?
Yeah. Do I trust you? And I think bringing back or building the new trust that we needed from the customers was the hardest thing.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating. And now, here's your host, Merle.
I'm sitting here today with Wiktor and Charlotte, and we are excited to talk about Technis, the startup of Wiktor, and have Charlotte's inputs from Innovo here. But first of all, of course, it's very hot outside. How are you two doing today?
Great. I like the heat and the sun, so all good.
Nice.
Oh, very good. Thanks for the invitation. Very, very happy to be here on this amazing campus too. And congrats for this amazing campus of startups, co-working. So glad to be here and to start with you.
Thank you. Well, thank you both very much for coming. I'm excited to talk to you. We have a very exciting topic today, which is the pivot, and specifically the pivot of Technis. But maybe, Wiktor, we can start with the basics. So Technis began by analyzing sports surfaces, like a tennis court, for example. How did you even come up with that idea? Are you a tennis player?
So yeah, I'm a tennis player, but I'm not playing that well. I was actually studying in the US, and I was Skyping at that time with one of my very good friend called Martin Hoffman. And then he mentioned that, when you're back from the US, we should talk about this idea, of tennis. You are always cheating at tennis, so we should do something about this. And then back from the US, we had a coffee actually in Paris. And he said, okay, you are always cheating at tennis. Maybe we should place a sensor underneath the line of a tennis court. Mm-hmm. And it was Avenue Victor Hugo in Paris in this coffee. I mean, I was not expecting something about this coffee, just a discussion with one of my very good friends. And then after an hour, he mentioned the tennis idea. We started to discuss about bringing technology to tennis, first underneath the line. And then he mentioned a startup contest at that time where we should register. There was, I think, 30,000 Swiss francs to win from the EPFL and University of Lausanne. I said, okay, let's go. And he said, okay, you are the CEO, I'm the CTO, and then let's go. And a few days after, we registered to the startup contest. We had 24 hours to fulfill the form. Yeah. And we had to find a name. So we said, okay, technology, tennis, let's call it Technis. And then Technis was born like this.
I love that story. That's really funny, actually. But it's nice. It shows that you have situations where you're a cheater. I want to have proof of this. Yeah. And there you go.
Yeah, I think, but mostly at the beginning was kind of, I don't know. We wanted to build something and bring, at that time, we were big tennis fan, going to Roland Garros and other championships. But I don't know, we were seeing on TV all this, famous replay of the ball on the tennis courts, this Hawkeye system created, I think, by IBM at that time. And then we said, okay, we should bring this kind of technology for all the amateur and new players in tennis. So we should do this and we should bring this because we don't have access to this. Or we have to be professional tennis player, which was difficult at the time. So this is how it happened, yeah.
You chose the easy path, entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Easy path. Exactly. And Charlotte, you've worked with many startups and now it's spoiler alert. But when you first heard about the pivot of Technis, what was your initial reaction?
Well, I heard about Technis in two folds. First, I attended a conference before I joined Innovo, where Wiktor was talking. It was about investor relations, and he actually presented the different pivots very clearly. You know, going from the tennis smart flooring to smart flooring as a service, and then to Google Analytics for physical space. And I was like, wow, it looks so natural, you know, it's easy, you know. And then a few months later, I joined Innovo, and we organize a CEO circle that we do a get together for CEOs at one of the scale ups. And he did a tour of his offices, and one of the places was actually the smart flooring for health. And I was like, I was really impressed. And he said, no, but this is actually on hold for now. And I'm like, this look like a really good, you know, technology, and it's on hold. So what else is he working on that is actually, you know, the business right now? So I was, very impressive how it all came natural.
Really cool. I was like, oh, there are so many more things in store then for Technis. Yeah. So we want to talk today about what Charlotte just mentioned. So how it went from the tennis court to all the other places that you use this technology now for. So maybe, Wiktor, can you walk us a little bit through what happened prior? When was the moment where you thought or you noticed either we have to or we can use the technology also for other areas?
Yeah, I think regarding this pivot that we've made, I think that we need to bring back also some context on this one from our sides, because we're 24 years at that time old, and we're very naive. We're going very fast, and we're like, again, students, you know. I was doing also in parallel my PhD in chemistry at that time. And so when we brought this, we wanted to bring this technology to the world of tennis and sports, was mainly to bring technology in physical space at that time. So the vision actually from that time to today didn't really change, but the application changed a lot. And then when we started to create our own company and startups, we've done, I think, all the mistakes that we shouldn't have done, but we've done them. Like creating everything from the hardware, from the software, from the mobile app, from pricing. Trying really to build the new company and doing everything on our hands. And it was very difficult at that time. First, regarding the investment part, to find money from investors. People were believing in the team, but I'm not sure in the product. But still, people were a bit, putting some money investing. And second, I would say the product itself was kind of a gadget at that time. It was, you were like, okay, do we want to wake up for smart tennis courts, or do we want to bring technology to physical space that can impact the way we live, the way we consume, you see? And so one day, I think we were a lot in the market in tennis clubs, but we're also trying to look at what we had developed. This was a smart mats, smart flooring, and discussing with many close people, close friends, families, and external friends. Was one day, with all the struggle that we had to find money to scale, and the first tennis court that we've budgeted, it was 8 to 10 millions, that the requirements of financial requirements that we had to look for. And then one day, funny it is, one of my close relationships said, okay, can you count number of people with your smart mats on tennis? Yeah. And that day we said, so people are looking for people counters. And then I said, yes, we can. I was not sure at that time.
Sure.
And then a week after, he came at the office and he tested, everything was working. I called one of my engineers and I said, okay, can we count number of people with our technology? And said, yeah, possibly. I said, make it possible for next week. And then the prospect arrived, and then 2 weeks after, he signed the contract for the first people counting. Yeah. And he was at Geneva, an exhibition center there. And then, one day we arrived at this day saying, okay, sport, it's nice, but maybe we should bring security, and maybe there is a path towards the application of this kind of technology to other spaces.
How does it exactly work? Like, is it like an extra layer in the floor, or how does it work? It's a very thin layer. It's like 2 millimeters thick. And so you place it underneath the floor. Okay. And so it's like pressure sensors. And then you sense
objects or people flow directly. So we imagine so many applications from a tennis ball to people falling on the ground, counting people for crowd management. So it's kind of unlimited applications.
And what is the most used environment that the technology is in right now?
At that time was mainly people counting. I mean, when we pivoted the company from tennis court to people counting and to the elderly care, I think we'll talk about this afterwards. But today it's about people counting. So it's crowd management applications.
So
in malls and mainly event industry where they need and require plug and play solutions.
So it was at that point, like you said before, it wasn't a complete reinvention. It was more like an adaptation of the technology to different environments.
And we've made like two big pivots. The first was really the market pivot from the sports to the security part. So we changed a bit and we adapt the technology. But we changed the entire company within 48 hours. We said, okay, let's go. And then I changed all the PowerPoints. And I remember I had an investor relation presentation, I think it was on Thursday. And then Monday evening, we decided to go from sports to security. And we arrived at this investor panel. I pitched the security crowd management systems to the investors. And with the 10 new slides, branded still Technis, that was another company. It was not, and people reading the summary of the investors was about sports, but I was pitching the security part. And we raised money directly within a month on this part. So we said, okay, maybe it's a good sign. That was the first thing. So with the team, one day you decide and you go for it. And then
was there any pushback, or were people actually like, oh, that makes sense?
I mean, the first teams that we hired and us we're still very passionate about sports, And so the first employees of Technis that are still here, they came Technis for the sports, for the tennis. But now they're not doing sports at all. I mean, in terms of product development. Pushback, no. I think it was at that time of the maturity of the company. It's all about, I think, the team, the naive side, but also the way, I mean, we're not afraid
of the
learnings. And we're like, let's go. And it's us and we should do it. And if we have to change, let's change it. Nothing will stop us,
It makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think it's probably also it's a form of excitement to see like, oh, we can also do it like this and we can work in different environments and see different things. I think it's also very exciting for a team.
Yeah, it was not pushback, but then it brought other aspects of the company because when you spend, 2 years on an industry and then within almost 48 hours or within 2 months you change everything, then you need to build again the pipeline, the clients, and a lot of things.
Did you also have to change the setup of the team?
Not at that time. I think the team could have worked on any specific topics, any specific developments on that time. I actually changed the client part. It was easier for us to access the security environment, the real estate environment with our technology. So the technology could travel, I would say, and the product at that time a bit more to find new prospects. What changes is the money coming inside the company from investors. That changed a lot.
Yeah.
So that was a big change for the company by itself. Yeah.
Positive thing.
Positive things. But then after the pivot, when you pivot and you say, hey, I was on the tennis part with the same technology, and then you go for the security, then you can make yourself think that you can go to other market directly. And I think we've done like mistakes there that we started to look for new markets like the elderly care, the retail, the sports, but in terms of education of sports people. And I think we went too far in the pivot by itself.
Yeah. Then you had to focus.
Yes, again.
Very interesting.
This episode was co-produced with Innovo, the innovation and investment promotion agency for the canton of Vaud. Check out www.innovo.ch/en to learn more.
And Charlotte, from your experience, because this also somehow was, I would say, like a strategic shift, how common is it for startups to realize that they need a shift?
I think it's very common. It's the earlier stage, the more common, because as Wiktor was saying, they're just learning and they realize, and when the team is small, it's easy to change. You learn from your clients. It's easy to change direction. The more you grow, the harder it is, because first you have to let go of the initial products, and for some people it's hard, or initial product or market, and for some people it's hard. For some investors and employees, you have to convince the bigger the group, the harder it is to convince them. So yeah, it's very common, but it's also needed sometimes, and it's the way of finding your growth and being successful. So I think it's totally normal.
Yeah, and probably also necessary.
Exactly.
Otherwise, maybe
sometimes
can't grow
anymore. Sometimes it's a make or break. Yeah.
Wiktor, for you, what was the hardest part afterwards? After the pivot?
I think it was to come back on the speed we had in mind. So the speed of delivery on the team was to say, okay, we've made this pivot, but then we have to keep the same spirit as the beginning. Everything is possible, and we have to prove everything. And what was hard is that you need to delete a bit in the old story, or you need to compose on the story of tennis,
Yeah.
So for a long time, it was very difficult because we were the sports guys, and that maybe failed or didn't succeed in bringing technology to the tennis court. But we pivoted. So when you come to a security director and he reads the news about you trying to bring smart tennis courts 6 months before, he's like, okay, and now you tell me you are in the security market.
Do I trust you?
Do I trust you? And I think building the new trust that we needed from the customers was the hardest things.
Is there anything that you see also in startups after they pivoted, besides maybe the speed? Or
sometimes it's hard to convince the team that you said they were in from the beginning and for the adventure, but some are in for for the market or the product. And switching is like, well, this is not my thing anymore. So, and some investors as well, they sometimes, for your pivot, it looks very natural, but sometimes it's a bit more, radical. And some investors, especially the early stage ones and the ones who came early on, it takes a bit of convincing to do. So it often looks natural afterwards. But on the moment, I think it's a bit of a mess. It's a lot of stress as well, because you decide, but you don't know yet if it's going to work.
Yeah.
And then it requires a lot of convincing and taking risk. And sometimes you also have to finance the pivot. So you have your clients from the old product or market, and then you want to go towards the new market, but you don't have yet the so you can't just drop the first one and then pivot all of a sudden. So I think it's a lot of challenge. It's almost starting a new startup sometimes. So you get all the risk and all the uncertainty of starting over.
And we have often this question from investors or from partners. We've created like two kinds of companies during our journey. Or 3 companies from what we have today, but it's always difficult to make the decision on continuing or on stopping and then deciding to build a new corporation. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
We've decided to continue on the 2 pivot that we've made, to say, okay, we capitalize on what we were doing, but in a different way. But sometimes you need to stop what you're doing and then build from scratch a new company. In our case, was a choice and the decision to make sure that we keep from the day one all what we have created inside our company. But most of the people are saying that we've built we had 2 pivots and so 3 types of companies in Technis story, which is true. But we've done all of this in the same system, I would say.
Yeah, because I think this is interesting, because often that's what we hear, right? On the one hand side, startups need to be adaptable, and which would, could be a pivot, but at the same time also stay focused and move forward and push forward in the direction that you're going, and have this long-term breath basically to make it. From an outsider's perspective, because you've seen so many different startups, how do you know, or when is it the right time to, like you said, stop doing it and focusing on something else, or just pushing through?
Well, as you say, I think it's absolutely right to advise, stay focused, but be flexible. But at the end of the day, it's the entrepreneur who knows when it's the time to to make the move. And I think what we can do as supporters of entrepreneurs is, and in my case from Innovo, what we do is that we connect the entrepreneurs to other entrepreneurs so that they see, that others have done it. They feel less lonely. They see it's, sometimes you have to make a big pull the the Band-Aid and, start over. That's what we try to connect as much as possible so that they learn from one another. They see it's possible. We have one of the events that we do is, so we connect C-levels startups in different groups. And one event we have is called Mastermind, where we invite a CEO to pitch a challenge to 5 to 10 other CEOs. And they take 1 hour of their time. We follow a specific methodology and they pitch the challenge. And then the group gives them, observations and feedback and everything under NDA. And we've had someone pitching the challenge of what do I do with this new service I want to develop? And the recommendation was to do a spin-off, and in the end it was the right decision. But so sometimes sometimes it's hard as an entrepreneur. You feel lonely and you don't know whether it's the right move to do or not. But like learning from peers and getting feedback from peers who are in the same situation, have done it or have experienced it, then it really helps.
Mm-hmm. Was this something that you did as well? Like, did you talk to other founders who have pivoted before?
Yeah, at that time I was talking a lot with advisors outside of the company. Of course, I had many from the ecosystem of Innovo and the Canton de Vaud. I had a lot of discussion with other founders that already had experience, and so to understand where we should go. The first pivot was quite natural. We've done it with all the naiveness that we had to have, and at that time that we had. The second one was more structured, I would say, from a hardware company to a complete software company. And for me, there's a bit of philosophy inside. As you mentioned, if you listen to all the entrepreneurs, the founders or the teams or the investors, I think the ego, you should remove it completely from that's very hard, but from the brain and then say, okay, why I'm doing this? What do we want to bring? And you can have like 10, 20 people against you. It's okay if your team is behind you. If you have your team, if you have the good spirit, you remove the ego, then you can make things happen. I had many people who told me, I had 20 people, 25, you are not doing the right choice. And then it changed. Finally, they said, maybe it's the right choice. Sometimes you listen, but you don't do what people are doing. For me, it's like also, I think the team, we forget about them. And it's very important to have the amazing team with you. Because with a team, it's like winning a soccer or tennis or, I don't know, a tennis, if you should take a tennis player, they have teams. Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, they have 20, 30 people around them to win.
True.
If you want to win the 14 times Roland Garros or 20 times the big championships, you have a team and you need to invest in your team. And for me, at that time, you will build strengths. Nobody, people can say things, mention things, or whatsoever, but you control with your team. And I think the context given to your team, the transparency with your team, building around, sometimes you can doubt. And it's important to share the doubts that you have. I think for me, that's the best strengths that you have for you to be able to sleep during the night and to wake up with the motivation needed.
Yeah. The sports analogies are still very strong.
I think so.
Charlotte, what was like the most unexpected pivot that you've seen?
When I see the entrepreneurs that I work with, they're at scale-up mode, and often they have gone through the pivot at that moment. Sometimes it still happens, and so it looks more natural. And I have a few examples that, obviously, Technis is one, but for example, there's Swiss 212. They started with, 3D printed RF antennas. And then they moved on to payloads for satellites. And then talking with the satellite providers, they realized, well, there's actually a need for geo satellite. And they build now the geo satellite. Their latest is called HummingSat. And it's going to fly in 2026. And they went from, so they kind of built, and you're saying sometimes it's just building on the initial product. but also talking a lot to the customers. And they was really learning from the market that they've managed to build. So a lot of them are, are building a platform. There is Domo Health, one of our actually initial scale-ups from the beginning, 10 years ago, and then they lost the label. And then they got it again because they went through this pivot, or basically the vision is to allow people to stay at home the longest when they're sick or when they're senior. And it was a call system, in case you have a problem. And then they moved it to a wearable. And now today, again, learning with the clients, they are co-creating a platform for health delivery and healthcare workflow. And so it's really like, when you see it the end of, I don't want to say end, but like towards the scale up, it looks very natural. They went through very difficult things. And they had some moment where they made decisions that were like, oh, should we do it or should that? For example, I was talking the other day with Rincotech. They do soda fountains or initially it was an industrial company from the 2000s, soda fountains for restaurants and hotels. And Frank-Eric, when he took over the company, he decided to put some digitalization. And today he developed a platform where it has smart machines delivering beverage still, but with AI, with IoT, and basically the machine can predict,
Yeah.
And he said like it was this pivot took him a lot of energy and a lot of doubts. And he mentioned his team and his wife and some very close people who really believed in it.
Yeah.
But he had a long path where he had to work it through and also finance the new business, because now he doesn't sell to a hotel or restaurant, but he sells to campuses, to hospitals. It looks very natural at the end, but dirty work, you once you get to scale up phase, usually you've seen it. It doesn't, I'm not saying it doesn't happen at scale up phase, but often the dirty ones have gone through. And I think, to generalize, I would say there's a lot of, there's a trend going towards platform. Also, like going from a physical product to something more digital and software integrated. But yeah, I think every pivot is also very, very different one from another. Depends on the company.
Buying Bitcoin has never been this easy. Thanks to the Relay app, you can buy Bitcoin with a bank transfer or a debit and credit card within a minute. The great thing about Relay is that you are the sole owner of the Bitcoin you buy, as you're always in control of your funds. You can also set up a savings plan to buy Bitcoin automatically every week or month, or buy it fee-free for up to 100 Swiss francs or euros each month. Take control of your future today by downloading the Relay app in your app store of choice and use the code SWISSPRENEUR to enjoy 10% less fees. That's SWISSPRENEUR in all caps. A quick disclaimer, Relay services are exclusively recommended for Swiss and Italian residents.
What do you think is like the biggest mistakes that startups make when they shift?
I think probably is taking too much time to make the shift, because they see it, but then there's, you're lucky you especially was the first one, you just went with it, you had the team and everything, but sometimes it's not that easy. And I think you can doubt a lot or for too long. And also you have to figure out how you finance it, if you need to finance it internally, or how you pitch it to investors. And so I think sometimes taking too long to make the decision and the actual pivot can almost kill the company in some cases.
Did you have a feeling that, because you said before it was hard for you to come back to this speed, did you ever have a moment where you thought, we need to pick it up or otherwise it won't work?
The speed,
yeah.
You mean? I knew it will come back because it's a work in progress. For me, when we talk about the pivot, it's kind of an innovation, a pipeline of a company. So we make a big thing about pivot, which is important because it brings many things. You can pivot through your team, from the way you operate, from the market, from the product. What's the definition of a pivot by itself? And pivoting is not bad. I think it's keeping the same vision of what you want to do, why you're waking up every day with your team, and what you want to achieve. And then I think pivoting is just a way of still achieving the same goal at the end of the day, but trying different ways of achieving it, Trust me, one day our goal is to create this smart tennis court. We still have this goal at the end of the day. It's not the biggest goal now. We have bigger goal. For me, pivot, it's a natural way of adapting, your human behavior and the way you work with your environment and making sure you are on the right track, that you bring the right customers. Then you have so many, conference that I've seen about failure, about product market fit, team investments, whatsoever. I'm not sure there is a recipe. You have statistics. Yeah. There are many statistics. It's very interesting how the statistics are always like presented. You have 80%, of the startups, failing after 3 years or something, So, but why are the 15% still here, And after 5 years, you still have like 6 or 7%, still alive. But why are they there? Why are they still alive? I mean, it's still a mystery. In my view, I think the strength that I had at that time is that I was speaking, I think, very transparently with my team. And I give them the choice to choose between, you can leave the company, which is okay, but I still need you in the company to achieve our dream, and let's build our dream. And you can be a team of 3 people, you can be a team of 30 or 300. If your team it's with you, it's very easy to move the team and to keep the speed. And when I was mentioning the slowing down, is that because you need to adapt quickly to a new situation. So to make sure the team is still in the good spirit of the goals. When they wake up, they know why they're waking up.
Yeah.
And when I look at companies today, I just want not only about the management team. I just want to make sure that the leaders of the teams understand that they are collective teams, that they are ready to spend the next years not fighting, but bringing a new service, a new product, and that they are ready to compete against other types of company. But if you invest into a company, you need to have the team. That's the most important part in my team. It's not about the logo. It's not about the CVs. It's not about the schools, the university. It's to make sure that people are not lying to you, that they are here, and that they exactly know where the doubts are, that they're able to share. They don't have the ego of saying, I raised this amount of money, I was in this press coverage. You don't care about this. You care about having the best team, and that's it.
Yeah. I like what you said before also, that for you a pivot is about making small changes to find the way that the company can work and can go. I like that a lot because it also, I think mentally it takes away a lot of pressure to not have it a make or break situation, but it's an opportunity to like tweak a little bit.
It's the trick, and a lot of people ask me about failure. During this pivot, did I think about, quitting, changing the company, building something else? And for me, that's part of building a company. It's when we talk about speed, is the speed of failure. So you need to fail very, very fast inside the company, and then to bring back new value every single time. So at Technis, we have failed many, many times, and we'll still be failing, which is good. But the idea is to keep the speed and the way you iterate, that you know that you're failing. And failure, it's okay. You need to make mistakes to learn. Yeah. And for me, it's not about, you don't have the correct product market fit, so you should stop your company. That's so bad. Or you didn't get your investments that you wanted, you should stop the company. It's very hard, of course, to continue if you don't have investments or whatsoever. But at some point, you should ask yourself, why are you doing this? And if you trust in what you're building and you want the world to know that you are bringing something new, there are many solutions to bring it at some point. And I've seen companies that they went from 200 people to 20 people. And to 2 people, and then bring back new people because they are successful. But the problem is that they're not sharing all of them the stories for now. But hopefully one day they will share the stories.
Yeah, and I think this is, now that you mention it, this is really important because helps so much other startups, and I'm sure this is also something that you see at Innovo with the programs that you run, how much value it brings just to share and to talk about a pivot, like you said before, with your investors. I'm sure this is something that you see also.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people realizing we also have a program for Series A companies with IMD called Leading to Scale Up. So it's to prepare the founders to go from startup mode to scale up mode. And we had the graduation last week, and one of the guys was telling me, you have no idea. I learned more from just knowing I'm not alone than from the rest. I mean, he was half joking, but it's no, but it's like just knowing that you're not alone and seeing that others are going through the same challenges. I think is just basis for continuing and say, okay, yeah, I can solve this. And, I'll continue on. And it's not, the problem is not me, it's just the situation.
Yeah.
So absolutely. And that's the feedback we get a lot, because that's also what we do. We connect people so that they learn from one another and they avoid the mistakes that others have done.
And looking back, Wiktor, would you say that if you would have not done the pivot or the shift, maybe from a business perspective or financially, would Technis still be around? Or do you think it was really necessary to do this movement to security in order to still be?
Yes, I would say if we hadn't made the pivot, we won't be, maybe myself, I won't be here. I wouldn't have been here at this table today. That's for sure. Then I think the lucky part of us is that the vision was so big. Yeah. When we started, I mean, we're always talking about tennis courts, but the first day we had so many ideas about physical spaces that I think it saved us from not imagining not other types of applications. But for sure, the pivot was necessary. But again, it was not because investors told us it's bad. It was not because it was not a SaaS company. It was not to make people happy around us. It was just a new way of achieving the bigger goal. And every time we pivoted, and I think every day you pivot a bit in your decisions too. And that's true. I mean, focusing doesn't mean that you can't pivot in the way you want to achieve the focus.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we still have this DNA in our skins and in the company, and we are ready for the next shift if we want to, or the evolution that we want to do.
And now going back to this, what we talked about before, about giving advice also, if somebody comes to you and says, I think I should pivot, I'm not sure where we are with our startup, or maybe we could do this and that, what would you say, or both of you, is like your initial answer? Is it like a just go for it, do it, or is it a wait and think about it? What would you go with?
I should pivot is not the right answer. I mean, it's always not the right question, because it's not the question about the CEO or the founder pivoting. It's about the company pivoting. It's about the team again. And I've seen startups coming and say, should I pivot myself? It's the ego is here. So you should remove first the ego, saying it's not you pivoting. Yeah. It's you leading the pivot. It's very important, because there's too much ego on the I should pivot. And second, it's the question is that what's your goal? What's the vision behind the company? If it helps actually to achieve in a faster way, or in a better way, or in a more competitive way what you want to achieve at the end, then, and your vision, then yeah, let's go and make it quick, make it fast. But don't be afraid. It's always like taking decisions. If you want to make a decision, make decisions fast, do not wait. And you will only know if it's the right decisions once it's made. What's nice with startups is that you can make a decision one day, and then the other day you can say, hey, that was very bad, so I should change my decision. You have this freedom, right? That's the only freedom that maybe you have.
Yeah, I would say, trust your gut. The entrepreneur is in the driver's seat, and they're the best position to make a decision about their own company. So they get as much information, and I concur with Wiktor. Try to make the decision fast, but get as much information and go for it once you've made the decision, and don't, you learn from it one way or the other anyway.
Yeah, I think this is a very good tip, and also very good way to conclude and come to an end. But of course, I want to know what's next in line for Technis. What other cool environment are you thinking about?
No, so the company, we haven't talked too much about it, but we pivoted from sports to security. And now the last few years, we specialized ourselves in digitalization of any physical spaces. So we connect 300 types of data sources, from energy monitoring to crowd management to people counting to smart mats, smart floorings mats, to different IoT sensors. We combine it on a platform, and then we make cross data, cross analysis to help reduce CO2 emissions from buildings, to make sure that you don't have empty spaces on workspace, to augment the profitability of every single square meters that you use. So we haven't changed the vision itself. We went very international, and so we'll keep the internationalization of it. I think it will be released in the next few days. So we've signed many big contracts the last few years, but we've also signed the big sports event in Paris last year, in the US too. And so the next step is actually we want to target in the next 4 to 5 years to become the European leader in digitalization of physical space. So that's a big goal. And in the short term, we are launching our new product in September, 16th of September. So it's going to be a very important release for us, for all our customers. Platform combining all data, all softwares, and so that's the biggest jump in the future for us.
Exciting, very exciting. So, do you have any funny analytics, like people often stand next to the stairs or something that you've seen in the malls or something? That was really funny.
Funny analytics. I think we're counting billions of people. This I'm sure. I don't know the exact numbers, but billions of people counted. Do I have this? No, I have one funny, but I'm not sure it's that funny. But it's in offices, general companies, they said when we arrive, they always say we have very strong in our HR guidelines and with home officing, and so our occupancy rate is between 80 to 90%, which is very high. Yeah. Every time we measure it, that's our job. It's an average 35%.
Oh wow!
And it's all and it's big companies, Yeah. And so it's always the question of perception, and that's one of the funniest part, because every time we say okay, let's measure and let's see. So
that's very interesting. Maybe we should put a flooring here in campus.
All the sensors.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. This was a super insightful and really exciting conversation. I'm really looking forward to see what comes up with Technis. And thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Merle.
It's a pleasure.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.